Hey folks, welcome back. So listen, we are really at the tail end of this, and after I got through doing this fourth video series here, the one where we did the how and the what, that stretched all the way across this board, all the way over to here, and even over the why, I realized that I had the opportunity to do that because I had a board this big. But what happens if you don't have that board? More importantly, what happens if you don't have that much time with the customer? What's a good way for me to present the how and the what based on the why to the customer using simpler, the word is simpler, kinds of imagery, and really starting with the why immediately versus waiting until the end of the drawing to bring it back into place. So that's what I wanted to start with you on today. And I'm going to use some multiple colors here as we get started to make sure that we keep those concepts separated. I'm just going to keep these things in my hands as I go through that now, and I will appreciate your time and attention yet again. Thanks a lot. Here we go. Folks, hey, thanks a lot for having me here today. I really wanted to take just a few minutes to talk to you about why we exist as an organization, why we're here in front of this audience and talking to you about the things that we're capable of delivering. See, I need you to understand that when it comes to the content and data intelligence business at Hitachi, we believe that it's our responsibility to make every bit of your organizational data available to you, make it as insightful as possible so that you can take some kind of informed action on it. Now take a look at what that really means. If I start here right in the center around all of your data being available, right? By availability, what we're really talking about here is making sure that the data is exposed to the appropriate layers, whether those are technical silos or whether those are actual people. And the way that we do that is to really try to centralize that data on our object storage platform that we refer to as the Hitachi Content Platform. Now, the Hitachi Content Platform is actually what's at the core, right? This is your centralized data hub. The reason why that's such an important concept to pass along to you here is because the moment you can centralize all of that data is the moment that you can actually start applying policies to it. And it's one of the biggest things that the content platform has really spent its entire lifetime focused around: improving, automating, and actually deploying these policies onto these individual objects. Now, the content platform as an object storage solution is both incredibly scalable when it comes to capacity, and you can certainly burst out of a traditional centralized or IT-centric kind of deployment into a variety of different kinds of cloud providers. So be that Google, be that Windows or Microsoft, be that AWS, or some other provider out there, just so long as they can communicate with S3 protocols. So we have all of this data that we can centralize right here. We use policies that set on top of it so that we can make sure that the right people have access to the data, that we keep the data for the length of time that it's required to do so, and we have a way to defensively dispose of it. More importantly, this entire configuration actually is clusterable. So we'll have HCPs located wherever you need to have them, geographically separated or not. They can be physical implementations. They can also run as a piece of software, and we'll use replication-based technologies to make sure that the data that's stored on them is always available to you. Getting back to the requirement that we have to keep everything available, right? We also want to make sure that it's protected, and we can do that with versioning that data. Versioning and other forms of data protection that we offer means that you don't have to rely on a traditional backup and recovery kind of application. There's a good opportunity for you to think differently when it comes to how you modernize your data center. But that versioning also has implications to your end users as well. We'll talk about that in just a minute. So here we are with the HCP right at the center. It is the center of our IT universe. And on the outside, we have all of this sort of data that's trying to make its way in. And that data can be in almost any kind of a traditional form, right? So we can have legacy applications. We can have maybe sort of semi-modernized applications as well. Then maybe web-based applications or mobile-aware applications. We have users that are creating that data all over the place. Their customers, their employees, their contractors, their partners, etc. All of them are creating that data. We also have any number of connected devices that are out there that are pushing data into us, trying to. Internet of Things. We know all too well how we get just imbued with different kinds of data that's trying to come in. And then last but not least, we have these traditional multi-tiered applications that perform some function to the business that we need to make sure that we keep. Now, that could be a Hadoop data store for big data analytics. It could be a traditional clustered database of some kind that's running maybe an ERP or a CRM system. My point, folks, is that this data is coming at us in a multitude of ways that are structured in nature, semi-structured, and maybe unstructured. What's interesting is when you listen to the analysts, what they're going to tell you is that by the year 2019, the number of things producing data is set to climb by 4,300%. Holy cow, 4,300%. That's all the data that's trying to find its way into the data center. There are a couple of ways that we can allow that to occur. We can allow the connections to come in directly, as long as the software, the person, the method in which the data is being created and transmitted can come in. We can certainly give it direct access. Typically, it would need to be able to communicate via S3. What we also have is the ability to put a gateway in front of this, more of a protocol translator. We call this the Hitachi Data Ingester. And it does exactly what its name implies. It sits on the edge and it takes in the data in one protocol, and then it converts that protocol into something that our HCP can understand. So a lot of times customers will use this for ingestion, as in a faster way to get data in. And they'll also use it for that protocol translation that I had mentioned. And they also will use this for caching data to keep it closer to the edge where people will need it. So a lot of times you would see that being used in a remote office, branch office situation. Now, what I haven't done here, other than to provide access, is helped you out on the insightful piece. And that's where the third part of our product comes in, the Hitachi Content Intelligence product itself. And where it fits within the stack is up to you. I see it as really fitting in two different locations. The first, acting more as a data quality sort of gateway, if you will, right before the data comes through. What it allows me to do here is sort of have the data go through content intelligence and allow content intelligence to apply a series of workflows or pipelines to process that data, to check it out, to make sure that it's up to snuff, if you will, before we actually give it a place to stay inside of the HCP. So we're going to do things such as pattern matchings. We're going to do tagging. We're actually going to step through and we're going to be able to augment that data if we need to. So in other words, if everything has to be in the same monetary format, in the same date-time format, any number of combinations such as that, and different kinds of patterns that we identify, and wanting to make sure that everything is standardized so we can transform them. I'll just put a TX there for transformation, okay? What we can also do is choose what to do with that data. we may want to take some kind of action on it. And an action could be to build out a centralized index to make it easier for us to perform some kind of search action or exploration action against it. So a great way for you to be able to find the data very quickly once you've dropped it onto the HCP. You could use that for day in, day out workforce productivity improvements. You can also use it in your legal department for how you might do early case assessment or discovery activities. What you can also do is use those actions to do things such as migrate data. So being able to take data off of, say, an old file system, move it over, and then be able to retire that file system while still having access to the data for longer term use. We can also do legacy data cleanup. What I mean by that, let's go back to this example. Way over here, we have these legacy applications. Those legacy applications are still needed by the business, though no one's really putting any more data into them. It's more residual data we need to access. Here's an opportunity for me to retire the application and retire the server or the equipment that it's running on. You're probably saying, well, how in the world can you retire it? I still need that application. Well, not really. You still need the ability to query it. So as I push that data through, that table and row formatting, and just understanding how that data is laid out and its relationships between different tables, as I process it, I can convert that to XML, store the XML on the HCP. Data is still queryable, but now you can retire that old, antiquated sort of legacy application and modernize it and keep it here on the HCP, right? Same thing with the migration of data, being able to not just migrate to keep it locally, but here's an opportunity for you to push that off and into a cloud provider because you're looking for a way to continually optimize the data that you're keeping and store it in the right location. Okay, so aside from migrating data, doing legacy database cleanup applications, we can also do copy operations, and then there's any number of additional actions that we would be able to take here. Right? So now we've got an intelligent gateway that's checking out the quality of the data, augmenting it, giving it some additional metadata, if you will, not changing the content itself, or actually performing services to move the data around for me. Now I've got it set inside of this particular flow of information, but content intelligence could actually be sitting here, and instead of HCP, I could have a cloud provider here. It didn't have to be the HCP. There's just a lot of value to data centralization. Let's talk about one of those value adds. How about getting data out to the edge of the business? Way over here. Right? And so there's a couple of edges that I like to talk about. The first one is the end user, me. I like to talk about me because I have needs. I have expectations placed on me. I have to operate at a speed that sometimes I feel like IT can't keep up with. Now, I can run off and grab a number of free services that are out there that provide capabilities for file synchronization and sharing, or give me cloud storage where I can store the files that I need and share with other people that are helping me collaborate on whatever the task is. Now, wouldn't it be great if the portfolio that you had access to took the availability concept here, the insightfulness that we have here, and stretch the availability onto this end? What we do is a product that we have that's called HCP Anywhere. Okay? And you can compare this product to a number of things that are on the market today that people in your organization may be using if there are policies that don't prevent them from doing so. But HCP Anywhere is very much an enterprise file sync and share and collaboration service that you can run on top of the HCP. Not only does it do file synchronization and sharing, not only are the files that are shareable controlled by the same kinds of policies that are controlling the very objects that stay here, and certainly being protected in very much the same way that we've described here, but you can also do end-user file backup and recovery. Now think about that. Now, when I am working on a file and I have a problem with it, instead of worrying about getting that file back by calling IT or opening up some kind of agent running on my laptop, all I simply do is just access my user portal, select the file that I need to recover, take a look at its version history, choose the version that will fix the problem that I'm experiencing right now and promote that version to the most current one. Wow, okay. But what's cool about this too is really thinking about the end user and the way that they work. We don't really care if they want to access their files via their cell phone. So there's an app that they can install, and on that app they can take a look at the files. They can also use their tablet, whatever that tablet is, be it an Android or an iOS device, it doesn't matter. Or they can actually use the data and pull it up on their laptop. Now, this one is incredibly important for me personally, and should be for you if you've experienced or know anyone who has experienced a ransomware attack. Okay, so whether it's Mac or Windows, whether it's iOS or Android or the Windows Phone, we have a way for you to install an agent so that you have access to your files that reside centrally here on the HCP. All the data that you have that's being generated on the edge is available. And not just available to you, but available to your end users, given policies that allow them to have that access, that control where that data can be shared to. Certainly that HDI device that's on the ingestion side could be brought to bear over here as well. What that's going to allow me to do is use that caching feature, and I can use that with my remote office sort of setup, whether that remote office is offices that I control, or in the case of some of our customers, actually using the HDI device as a means of sharing data with their partners on hardware that they own, using policies that they control. So again, we're taking the insightfulness, the availability, and we're just essentially stretching it all the way out to what we decide is the edge of our business. And then, of course, I left space, and you're probably saying, why did you leave that space there? Because one of the things that I can also do is intelligently access that data, again, with the Content Intelligence product line. Okay, so with Content Intelligence, what I'm going to do is take advantage of things like indexes, right? I'm going to use things such as these categorical references that we'll refer to as facets. But we're going to categorize the data. We're going to classify it. We're going to aggregate it from multiple sources. And we're going to make it accessible based on the same kinds of policies that we had talked about, so that the right person has access to the data at the right time and in the right format. So in other words, in a way that allows them to see an entire business record, right? I could certainly pull one piece of data from one technology stack at a time, but the nice thing is Content Intelligence, I can aggregate all of that together to make the data look like it's coming out of one centralized location, even if I choose to leave it way over here in these formats and under the ownership of the people that I've defined. Everything that I've just drawn for you, ladies and gentlemen, is what we do to make every bit of your data available. Whether it's centrally available, available on the edge, aggregated from a multitude of sources. We're using Content Intelligence to make it insightful. That product allows us to augment the metadata to make it easier for you to find the data that you need so that you can take some kind of action on top of it. That action may be to delete the file, it might be to start a brand new innovation that you're working on, it may be an opportunity to optimize how you're working, it may be a way for you to digitally transform. My point is this is an entire data strategy foundation. It's all predicated on our Hitachi content portfolio. On the edge with Hitachi Data Ingester, insightfulness through Content Intelligence, keeping everything available, centralized in this data hub that we call HCP with access to the cloud. Insightful in terms of how you access it, whether that's on the very edge using a mobile device, cache to support a remote office, branch office solution, or whatever you want to put right over here in terms of why you need to get that data out. It has been my pleasure to share this grand vision with you, and the best part is the vision is really just the whiteboard. These products are real. We're ready to put them to work for you right now, and I think the next thing we should probably do is go into a little bit more detail about how these things actually do the things that I'm talking about. Maybe some demos, leave you with some literature, whatever we need to help you get started. Thanks very much.